You're listening to the Good Question Podcast with Richard Jacobs. Our goal is to make each of our guests exclaim, that's a good question. I don't know the answer. Because when that happens, it means you, the listener, may be inspired to learn more beyond the interview and to ask great questions yourself that lead to new insights. In this podcast, we cover historical and current anthropology, comparative religion, and history. Welcome, and let's get started.
Hello, this is Richard Jacobs with the Good Question Podcast. My guest today is Cate Shanahan, MD. She's the author of a new book called Dark Calories, How Vegetable Oils Destroy Our Health and How We Can Get It Back. She's a Cornell-trained physician scientist. Her works have inspired entire movements, including bone broth, live culture ferments, seed oil-free business empires, etc. She worked with NBA legend Gary Vee and created the LA Lakers Pro Nutrition Program, and that's been emulated by elite championship teams around the world. So this is going to be a great call. Started working my way through her book. Very informative, very scary, but I believe very helpful. So welcome, Cate.
Oh, hi. Well, thank you so much for inviting me onto your show.
Yeah, no problem. Well, if you would tell just listeners a bit about your background. How did you come to even be concerned or think about seed oils?
Yeah, so, I'm a family medicine doctor, and before I went to medical school, I was hoping to become somebody who be a biochemist, actually. So I was very interested in biochemistry, and really why I wanted to be a biochemist was so I could create microbes that would digest plastic, right? So because at the time, the biggest problem with plastic was baby diapers, and now part of me wishes I stayed, actually, because we have bigger problems with plastic now. But I left. And so I learned a lot of biochemistry and I went to medical school. And those two worlds were separate. You know, didn't seem like there was a lot of biochemistry in the practice of medicine. But the reality is there should have been, because one day I came across a term called essential fat. That was actually a chemical term. Those essential fatty acids like omega-3, you've heard of that, right? Omega-3 is the anti-inflammatory kind of oil. Fish oils are supposed to be healthy for us because they have this omega-3 in them, right? So that's actually a chemical term, and it refers to a specific molecule. And so I was like, oh, that's interesting. And I should say at this point, medical school in the 1990s did not cover omega-3 fats at all. So it was new to me. It was new to the world. The world didn't really start talking about that until around the year 2000. So I realized that I'd been eating a lot of these kind of essential fats. In fact, so many that it might be a problem. And it might be a problem because of the chemistry. And so as soon as I encountered that term, and this was way back in the beginning of the 2000s when people were first talking about omega-3 fats, I realized that there was something that could possibly explain what was going on with my patients in the everyday things that people go to doctors for, that doctors don't really fix. You know, the risk factor things, when you go to a physical, your doctor screens you for your blood pressure and for your blood sugar and to see if you're at risk of a heart attack. Yeah, they screen all those. Those are called risk factors. Risk factors are actually not really a root cause, right? You can lower someone's blood pressure with drugs, but they can still have a heart attack. Right? So it's not, obviously it's not a root cause. And doctors, we all know that, right? We knew that we were just managing risk factors. It wasn't really a cure. It was just sort of the best we had.
Even now, if you have high or low levels, the doctor will say, all right, take this medication. They don't, they rarely, unless it's functional medicine, they rarely get into the underlying and why.
Correct. And functional medicine tries to do this, but because this chemistry stuff is not taught to even functional medicine practitioners, they can't get to the root cause, because these oils I discovered, after about quite a lot of research, a lot of investigation, couple of years of work, I realized, these oils are the root cause of things like hypertension and heart attacks and strokes and even weight gain, diabetes, obesity. These oils change our metabolism in ways that make us gain weight. These oils change our brain chemistry in ways that make it age, make our brain age and make us develop dementias. these oils change the way our liver works. So we get fatty liver. These oils do everything to our bodies that doctors, are familiar with. But when you ask your doctor, what to do for it, all they can do is throw up their hands and say, well, it's just genetic or age, or give you a drug for the rest of your life to take to try to control it.
And the connection between these essential fats and seed oils. I know you talk about it in the book, but you can give maybe just a quick overview of how you came to this realization. The realization that seed oils were a major problem that were affecting you and your patients.
Yeah, so it was the chemistry of it. As soon as I realized that I and my patients were eating oils with this chemistry, and the chemical term is they have a lot of polyunsaturated fatty acids. So if you've heard of saturated fatty acids, those like butter is solid, and polyunsaturated fatty acids are why the vegetable oils like soy and canola oil are why they're liquid. They're different chemically. They're less stable. They react with oxygen in a deleterious way that destroys our cells. So basically these vegetable oils, they build up in our body fat and they change our body chemistry. They change our metabolism in a very profound way that medical science has not begun to understand. And in chapter 2 of Dark Calories, I start out by pointing out that medical science really has changed very little in 2,000 years because our thinking is not root cause oriented. Our thinking is reactive, right? We've done a lot in terms of technology in 2,000 years, and we can react now to like infections. We've got the technology of antibiotics. If someone has a car crash and they have all kinds of complicated bone fractures and their organs are smashed and need major surgery, well, we've got wonderful anesthetics and all kinds of ways to keep their blood pressure up and wonderful technology to help them in this reactive scenario. But in terms of understanding just basic root causes, why do people get diabetes, type 2 diabetes, the most common metabolic disease? We don't have an answer for that. It's a bunch of risk factors. So, and the risk factors is not an answer.
So, what were some of the first things you did when you had this realization? Were you the guinea pig and you tried that on yourself, or did you tell patients right away? Like, what happened?
I tried it out on myself first. Well, first I did a ton of research, right? Like I had to make sure it was going to be correct, and that took actually a couple of years. And the thing is, when you are a chemist, you can predict reactions, right? This is how chemists predict reactions. That's how they make plastics. That's how they make drugs. They predict reactions. So I knew with the chemistry, and the type of chemistry is called oxidation biology. Oxidation biology was telling me that these things would actually deteriorate our body and do all this stuff. So that's how I knew that it was good, that it was bad. And actually, I'm not the only one. Like there was another doctor. Well, I'll get into that later. But other people had predicted this. Other people had predicted and warned vegetable oils, not good. We should not be flooding the food supply with these. And I, at the time, was eating probably, the average type of diet. Like I was probably getting 10 to 15% of my calories from vegetable oils. Now that's doubled. The average person is getting 30% of their calories from these oils because they've increased in the food supply. And so what I did, I just stopped eating them. I started eating healthy fats. We stopped using processed food because they're in so much processed food. So we started making cooking more of a priority. we were already using butter in our house, but I started just, avoiding the cookies and treats that were made with the bad stuff and making cookies and treats with the good stuff instead. And I also, at the same time, I cut out sugar, right? So I was making a major dietary change because I had a real bad health problem. And I talk about that, another podcast in the beginning of the book, but I did get better. I got my health problem got significantly better. I wasn't able to walk. It was really bad. I had a serious...
to walk? What do you mean?
No, it was really bad. It was threatening my ability to work. And so that's partly why I took this whole nutrition thing so seriously. And
would you mind talking a little bit about like what you were feeling and experiencing? Were you just tired? Did you have brain fog? Like what were your particular symptoms?
Well, my whole life I had brain fog, and I didn't realize it until I got off the oils. But like, what made me so sick was, and I think it was a kind of like neurotropic virus, a rare form of a neurotropic virus that is settled in my nervous system, and then from there extended to my joints, and that's why I couldn't walk. So it was in my knees, and I was getting fevers. I was getting, pain and swelling in my knees when I would just stand on them. So I couldn't really stand and walk. I kind of had to sit in the room. I had patients come in and see, which was hard, like really bad. And my boss, since he hadn't heard of this type of thing before, my boss was a surgeon. He thought I was faking it for some bizarre reason. And it was just really terrible. It was not a good time in my life.
Gaslighting is, there's gaslighting fellowships in medicine quite a bit, unfortunately. So,
yeah. I don't know why I would have faked not being able to walk. Like, that just doesn't even make sense. But anyway, he was not a very nice person.
So was it all your joint? I mean, was it primarily hips, or like all your joints felt what, like knees. Thick and slushy?
My knee. It was my right knee, right knee. Especially. And and it would swell and get hot and red, and it just, hurt and feel like an infection, because it was an infection. Like if you had an infection on your skin, they hurt when you touch them, and you shouldn't stand on infected joints. So it really, really hurt. But it was a virus, not a bacteria. So antibiotics didn't work. Nothing really worked. So the only thing I could do is improve my immune system. And so that's how I got into like even looking at other books that taught me terms like essential fatty acids, because it was like an outside the box sort of thinking on nutrition and health, a book written by Andrew Weil, who's kind of a guru of the alternative medicine movement back in the 1990s. You might have heard of him.
I've heard of Dr. Andrew Weil, yeah. You get a picture of him with flowers around him and his beard, and he's smiling. Yeah, I've seen it before. Yeah, he's a happy looking guy. I call him like the Jerry Garcia of yes,
medicine.
Exactly.
So, my life sucked. And until I got these oils out of my diet and also got sugar out of my diet, I couldn't walk for years. And then once I finally did, I got better, right? So all of that kind of convinced me that, maybe I really need to start sharing this with my patients. And this was by around 2005, 2006. And I started sharing just the oils thing, because I was already telling them, too much sugar isn't so great, even though I was eating it myself, right? Because I was a sugar addict. Like the do as I say, not as I do, right? That's the classic addiction kind of thing. Yeah. I was a complete sugarholic. So I did it. I didn't think I had a health problem, actually. So I didn't think cutting sugar out of my life would change my life in any way. But I didn't realize it, until I got sugar out. But I also...
So you weren't having like, now that you look back, like how was your mind? Were you sharp? Were you young and sharp, and you felt like, oh, this knee, I don't know what's going on, but everything's fine. I don't know what's wrong with me. But were you feeling okay in general? Were you feeling like, well, even in retrospect, or how was it?
It wasn't affecting my mind. The infection wasn't affecting my mind. But what I didn't realize was that the oils had affected my mind. And what I was experiencing was, I just thought was my personality, but like I would not be able to function at the end of the day like I can now, right? Like I'd come home from work and my husband would just ask like, oh, how was your day? And I would be so kind of mentally worn out that I couldn't even answer that question. I couldn't, I was so exhausted. I couldn't even remember a thing that had happened during the day. So I couldn't have like a normal conversation about how was my day, because my mind was blank suddenly. It was bizarre, but I thought that was me, right? I thought that was just me, because I kind of had been a little bit that way my whole life. But it got worse, when I was working the long days in clinic. So, I never had been like a person who was like, when I came home from school, like I would talk about my day. I was never really like that. So I thought it was just me. My whole life, I was suffering from this metabolic problem that had affected my brain in ways I didn't even know about until I stopped eating the oils. And stopping the oils enabled me to not crave sugar. Now, if that sounds like a non sequitur, it should.
Yeah. What was like the first week like, or the first 2 weeks like? Do you remember?
No, I don't, because it was kind of gradual. Like we had to figure it out, right? Because there was no blueprint. There was no one saying, just eat this, right? So we kind of had some like leftover stuff and we finished that off. But I do remember after about 6 months into it, I felt way different. And, you know, I didn't know what to expect either. Like, I was just like, well, maybe this will help, right? And so I slowly started cutting down on sugar. It took me a while to get off sugar. I did not go cold turkey on it. But I realized because I had stopped eating those oils and started getting healthy fats, now I can tell you what happened. I didn't know what was happening at the time, but I did not crave sugar so much. So I was like, maybe I could cut down. That would never have occurred to me because I was this addict in denial. And so I slowly cut off. It took months to get off sugar because I was having so much. I put a 1/4 cup of sugar in my coffee in the morning, a 1/4 of a cup. I had
How many grams a day do you think you were having?
So a teaspoon is about 4 grams, and the 1/4 cup is something like, I don't know, 20 teaspoons. So 100
grams. Yeah, 100. Yeah,
80 to 100. Yeah. So I cut that down gradually, and then after about 6 months, I had been off of it for maybe a week. And I noticed my knee wasn't bothering me quite so much. Like that first week that I got off of the sugar, right? I was also at the same time, I was clearing a lot was happening. So there's a lot that these things do to us. And if I sound like I'm, like there's just so much I'm piling on to answer this one question, that's because a lot happens, good things happen when you stop eating these oils because they do build up in your body. And so they're still there. Even though the day you stop eating them one day, they're still there and they can still affect you. And so it wasn't until like months later that I realized what had happened, that I had been through a major transformation and that it had started earlier than I really realized. And so now I'm just going to jump into telling you what to expect. So when you cut the oils out of your life, starting on day 1, getting healthy fats helps you concentrate better. It helps your hunger. And it helps your sugar cravings if you're struggling with that. It helps your carb cravings if you're struggling with that. Because the oils, vegetable oils, steal your energy and healthy fats give you energy. And I explain the chemistry, and that's the chemistry you're going through now. You'll understand that better by the time you get to chapter 3. But yeah, I promise you will. And if you don't, write me back and I'll explain it. And we'll come on again because I need to explain it. So the very first day that you cut the oils out and eat only healthy fats and eat a good amount of healthy fats, you can start to feel more concentration, better concentration, less brain fog, more energy, and fewer sugar and carbohydrate and food and snack cravings. It might be subtle in the beginning, but after about 2 weeks, it gets stronger. And after about 2 weeks, you also now have stopped killing your gut with these oils because they kind of attack your gut and cause bloating, heartburn, inflammation. And so you start feeling less of that. If you were struggling with that. Not everybody is affected in the same way, but everybody is affected in some way, right?
Yeah, this is a great question. So what kind of feedback have you gotten from patients? Because, I'm sure you see a lot of them. So how have you seen other people react to getting rid of seed oils? What are some of the things you've seen?
Well, this is the thing I'm trying to say, and obviously not saying it very well. It fixes everything.
Okay. Well, that's an example. What are some things that patients had that they were shocked about?
Fatty liver, hypertension, type 2 diabetes, uncontrollable sugar cravings, sugar addiction, serious sugar and alcohol addiction, bipolar disorder. Actually, I had a patient that I worked with pretty closely who had cancer. He had a huge tumor, and I tell this story of this guy in the book. And we shrunk it down, his esophageal cancer, we shrunk that down to the size of a dot. It had been like the size, I think, of like between a golf ball and an apple. We shrunk it down in about 6 months. And, since I've written the books, like people have just given me so many stories. And I have those testimonials in the back of the book with lots of very specific details. Somebody had a condition called eosinophilic esophagitis, which is an extreme form of heartburn that is very disabling. People are miserable. And his doctor had no clue that these oils caused it. He completely cleared it up. It was when his doctor first looked at his esophagus with those cameras that they stick down your throat, it was all red, inflamed, and swollen. And after he got off the seed oils, 6 months later, he had a follow-up because he was at high risk for cancer. It was all normal looking. His doctor was amazed.
Yeah, that's great. It's amazing.
Yeah. Like I say, literally anything. Like if you yourself, maybe you don't want to tell me, but have you ever, like, do you know anybody who's struggling with anything?
No, everyone I know is perfectly healthy.
Wow. You must already be avoiding seed oils.
Well, I was going to bring this up. So, I'm going through your book and I'm seeing the importance of it. And now it's like not easy. I mean, seed oils are everywhere. I'm guessing they're in places I wouldn't even suspect. So how do I know that I'm really avoiding them? I mean, some of this stuff's obvious. If you see like packaged garbage that's on the shelf, but what if you go to a restaurant that says, "Oh, we all our stuff's fresh and we cook with this and that," and how do you know that they're using seed oils or not? How hard is it to get rid of them? It seems like it's going to be hard because they're very pervasive.
Yes, they are very pervasive now. They didn't used to be, but they're dirt cheap, and a lot of people think they're healthy or used to think they're healthy. And at pretty much every restaurant is going to be using them or a blend. The only way to avoid them is to find the rare chef who will not use them. And they are out there. There are a few. And there's actually a app that has been developed now to help people find restaurants that are seed oil free. And I get no money from this app. It's called Seed Oil Scout. It's a paid app, and it will guide you to the restaurants in your area. But otherwise, you can navigate it. It's not easy, but you have to be able to talk to your server. And all you need to know is one question. This is it. Do you have anything back there that you can cook for me in butter? And I mean, butter, not margarine. You have to clarify that because some young children today don't know the difference. And also you have to say real butter, not butter oil. That's it. But chances are they will have something that they can cook for you, and it will probably taste good. Every time I've done that, they found like something that cooks quickly, like fish or eggs or, chicken breast or something like that. And it comes out really good. And that's all I eat. I won't want to bother with their dressing unless they, that's another question you got to ask. You say, can you just bring out olive oil and vinegar? And then you got to taste it, make sure it's like olive oil, because they'll water it down with canola or soy or one of the cheap ones.
Oh, really? They'll mix them.
They do. They pour the oil, they pour olive oil on top. So you got to stir it.
Okay. How do the restaurants react when you tell them this stuff? Do they now in today's day and age with food allergies, are they like totally accommodating, or do they look at you like you have two heads? Like what happened?
Well, they did used to look at me like I had two heads. That's absolutely right. But they were happy to accommodate anyway, because you don't want to do it like this. Here's what doesn't work. And I know this from trial and error. What kind of oil do you use? Never ask that question because they don't know.
Okay.
Right. And
that's why you say, can you cook me something in butter? Because that's a positive statement instead of what oil do you use? Okay.
Yeah, people like to say yes, and they like to know exactly what you want, right? If you say, what oil do you cook in, they don't know what you want. They don't know what the right answer is. It's a big mystery, big black box. It's scary. So don't give them a big black scary box. Just give them a small little homework assignment. Find out what you got back there that you can cook in butter.
Yeah, that makes sense. And how often do they say nothing versus, we could do this or that?
Well, that's not happened to me yet, knock on wood.
Oh, good. Okay, excellent. Have you identified some of the food sources or restaurants that are like the worst offenders? I know you got to be careful naming names, but like what do you have general guidelines for people that go to grocery stores even, or people that, again, eat out a lot?
You're going to love the back of the book. The last third of the book, it's like a couple hundred pages, I think, of just absolutely practical information, because I will answer, I've gotten all the questions over the years. And so I will tell you, what can they do if there's nothing that they can cook in a restaurant, what else can you eat, right? I have that listed out. But like I said, knock on wood, that's never been the case. So I tell you what to do if they don't have anything that they can cook in an oil. What else can you eat? What else can you look for? I tell you how to navigate a variety of travel situations. I tell you how to find the oils on the packages that you buy and how to tell how much is okay. Like if there's just a teeny tiny bit in there and it's not enough to worry about. That's a very important distinction to make, because it's in so many things, right? But it's not 100% always that you need to avoid it. So I teach you how to tell the difference. And I also teach you what other things to watch for and how to just build a bunch of healthy meals. I've got like a detox week challenge that works out a whole menu for you. So you can, if you want to try it at home, you can go complete 2 weeks with seed oil free. I give you like a shopping list, how to make a shopping list of seed oil free healthy foods. Pretty much should be just about everything you need to get started. And there's more resources on my website too.
Have you noticed the difference between people that just have very little seed oil versus people that have like none? Is there a big difference in health?
I have heard that people may notice a difference, and I think it's because of the gut. Like if you have like a little bit, here's how people, let me clarify that actually. So when people have seed oils once in a while, like they'll go out to a restaurant and just order whatever versus having just a little bit like from those little bits that I tell you not to worry about. You truly don't have to worry about those little bits I tell you not to worry about. But it does make a difference if you avoid them at restaurants or not, especially if you go out to eat at like every single week. That will make a difference at the 100% there.
Is there, I don't know, do people have any hangover or withdrawal symptoms? Like I know with sugar, the first time I cut it out, I got really sick for like 2.5 weeks. Subsequent times weren't as bad, but what have you seen with seed oils? Any difficulties in doing it, withdrawals, cravings?
Yeah, so what you were experiencing is something called like the low carb flu. It's very similar to that. And seed oils do only getting those out, you feel better. You feel great. It is a positive experience.
Well, good. So it's not very hard to do. It's not like again like the keto flu or low carb flu where you got to struggle through it the first few weeks.
And I might blow your mind a little bit once you get to chapter 4 and later in the book where I talk about what actually causes the keto flu because it's vegetable oils. See, when the keto diet was first invented back in the early 1900s, there were no vegetable oils. So people could just go on a keto diet. They would not experience the low carb flu or the keto flu. And back when Atkins first invented it in the 1960s, there was not a significant amount the significant amount that there is today. So there wasn't the low carb flu or the keto flu back then. The low carb flu and the keto flu are symptoms of vegetable oil toxicity to your metabolism.
Oh, interesting. Oh, very interesting. So what would you say is like the most prevalent and worst single offender in the vegetable oil, world?
The hateful eight, they're all equally bad. They're all basically chemically the same. So soy and canola and corn and cottonseed, sunflower, safflower, rice bran and grapeseed, they're all basically chemically identical. And so they're all equally bad. That's why I call them the hateful eight. There's no angels in the hateful eight. They're all, get them all out of your diet.
Well, which ones are people most likely to run into? I guess, different regions, maybe there'd be preferences, but again, which ones tend to be most prevalent and hardest to avoid?
So in the regular grocery store, soy oil is the hardest to avoid because that's the most common in the food supply. In restaurant situations, it's unpredictable. They're all there. That you don't know what they're doing, and it doesn't really matter. But the one that tries to claim that it's healthy that you really need to know about. Maybe if you shop only at Whole Foods or Trader Joe's. Well, there's 2 of them: sunflower and canola. Those both claim to be healthy. But actually, rice bran and grapeseed also claim to be healthy. So they're all bad. You want to avoid all of them. But soy oil is the most common. So you're going to see that one coming up most often.
Okay. Quick question on the side. Why do you call the book Dark Calories? Why not, I don't know, dark oils or something like that, or deadly oils? Why calories?
Well, calories, because first of all, because they're 30% of your daily calories are coming from these oils. And I think that's an important statistic to get your mind wrapped around. The average person who isn't trying to avoid them is getting 30% of their daily calories from this stuff. So it's not an insignificant amount. And I call them dark. Okay. So I call it dark because doctors don't learn about these. Dietitians think they're healthy, and medical science has ignored them as a root cause of disease, serious disease and suffering. And they are the main toxin in the food supply, and no one's talking about them. It's like they're invisible, like they're hidden. So I wanted to show the world in Dark Calories what we've been eating and what it's doing to us on an individual level. And it explains a lot of these population level things. Like if you've heard that millennials are having fertility problems, if you've heard that younger generations are getting more cancer, like the fastest rise in cancer is among people under the age of 50. That's unheard of. Cancer used to be a disease mostly of old people and just the leukemias that children would get. brain cancers that only
that's
children.
terrible. Yeah. I have to say, your book looks like, it's probably ridiculous, but the colors make it look like a piece of dark chocolate with peanut butter. Like I want to eat the book when I see it just based on the colors, which I know sounds ridiculous, but just letting you know.
Fine. As long as you want to get it in your hands. I'm happy with that.
Quick question here. How did 30% of someone's calories come from seed oils? Like it seems like there's a thin layer, I guess, of oil that things are cooked in. So how could they represent so much of the bulk?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, first of all, oils are more calorie dense than the foods that we're cooking in there. So, like celery has no calories, a vegetable has no calories. When you eat a salad, most of the calories are coming from the oil in the dressing. If you put oil, if you have an oil dressing on your salad. And foods like French fries and chips and crackers and stuff, they soak up the oil. And so when you eat a French fry, almost half of the calories are coming from oil. The same with like any fried food, any deep fried food that's starchy, it's going to soak up tons of oil calories. And crackers and chips and those sorts of things, all the fat calories are coming from these oils, and roughly a third of the calories are fat calories in those sorts of foods. And then it's in the most popular condiment in America, which is mayo, which is in tuna salad, and like you go out to a sandwich place, you get mayo on your burger, you get chicken salad, macaroni salad, I'm sorry, a little brain fart there. Potato salad, like a lot of the cold salads that we eat, they're swaddled in mayo. A lot of dips are made with these oils instead of like dairy fat or other healthier fats. So it really does add up in a surprising way. And then almost every packaged food. So like if you have food bars or energy bars, if you go to Starbucks and get like a mocha frappuccino, the cream is usually real cream at Starbucks, but the flavoring, like the caramel flavored flavoring that you put in your drink is going to have oil in it, not just sugar, right? So they're everywhere. They work their way, and they've worked their way into our food supply. Like you said, when you go shopping, they're in everything, and they're often many first ingredient, one of the first few ingredients.
A friend of mine actually said, I don't know if this is true, but he said in vapes, when you're breathing in the vape, you're breathing in volatilized vegetable oils. They put them in there as like a carrier. Have you heard about that?
Yeah, because if they need a lipid carrier, I hadn't actually heard about that, but if they need a lipid carrier, they put them in other things as a carrier too. So yes, I've heard of the concept. And yeah, so you're breathing it in. I mean, it's a small amount, right? You're not going to take in too many calories that way through your lungs, but it's still not good for your lungs either, right? So they do put them in absolutely everything. They use them as pesticides, and because they're cheap, and they actually can kill insects because they can suffocate them. Any oil can do that, right? But they're not going to spray olive oil as a pesticide. So, they're so essential to our economy that farmers grow them, and it becomes a vicious cycle because farmers grow them and there's always a market for them. They've just worked their way into more and more of the foods that we eat. So you have to really be in the mindset of the world is trying to feed you these oils, and they're hurting you now, and they're going to continue to hurt you, and they're going to make you sick and kill you. So you have to be like on the defense all the time to be healthy these days. And that's really sad. But what's sadder is to not know the truth, not to know that truth, right? And so that's why I wanted to write this book, open people's eyes. And I can hope that if doctors start reading it, then they can also kind of help people understand that here, just stop eating these oils, and you won't need to take your heartburn pills or your migraine pills, or you won't need so many puffs on your asthma inhaler all the time. So, because it will improve all of those things.
Has anyone done a health program specifically aimed at doctors? Like, you're one. What if you went around to a bunch of colleagues and like, let's do a seed oil elimination challenge, because you guys are the faces of healthcare. I don't know. Maybe something like that could work. Yeah,
that's a great idea. The closest thing is the keto diet. There are lots of doctors who are promoting the keto diet, and now, so I've been involved in writing a lot of the books on keto. Some of them actually quote me quite a bit. And the new versions of the keto diet since 2017, they warn people about seed oils. So even though people following a keto diet focus mostly on the carbs, they're also avoiding the seed oils. and getting a lot more, I think, more benefits from that than they are from avoiding the carbs. Because I don't tell people to avoid 100% carbs, as you'll get to when you get to the later part of the book.
Yeah. So reasonably, people have to be patient and do this for at least 6 months to see benefit, or on average, like how long does it take for people to significantly notice significant change?
Well, most people, the first day, like once you start eating the healthier fats, it kind of depends a little bit on what you've been doing. But if you'd been like avoiding butter and eggs and cheese and coconut oil and the things that are sustaining, energizing, healthy fats that I list in the book, if you've been avoiding all those things, then you're going to feel great starting on day 1 because they give you energy immediately. And then after about 2 weeks, you start noticing quite a lot less. Like if you've been struggling with heartburn or bloating or just feeling inflamed, like leg swelling or skin problems, after about 2 weeks, you start to notice that improving. And then if you stick with it for 3 months, most people are feeling incredibly better. And by 6 months, they're like, people have written me to say, I'm 60 and I feel better now than I did when I was in my 20s. And I can beat my son at tennis.
No, that's really great. So about 3 months was the mark when you felt just, markedly better.
Yes. But like I say, a lot of people, it depends where you're starting. A lot of people feel markedly better very earlier than that. That's why I give a 2-week challenge, because you're going to notice something, most people.
That's not too bad. Yeah. Just a couple of weeks to notice something big. But what are some of the other things that your patients have felt that they told you it just made you smile or, made you really happy or say, yes, how do you know?
Well, there was a patient of mine whose son had read Deep Nutrition, one of my earlier books that also talks about seed oils and other ways to eat a healthy diet. And his son, he said this about his son. He said he was good for nothing but jail because he had a lot of psychiatric issues and medications weren't not helping him. He was diagnosed with bipolar and schizophrenia and OCD and Tourette's. And he said that 2 years after changing his diet, he was out of jail, he was volunteering, and he was starting to apply for jobs. And he thought he would never be able to say that about his son. Like he had almost given up on his son. And so like that, like just to see him have this hope and the relief and like the newfound love for his son, that just so warmed my heart. It like when I get those stories, it totally makes my day. Like it makes this all kind of worth it because, I'm not selling supplements. I don't know if you noticed that. A lot of people in the health space are selling something and I'm not. I'm just telling people the truth. And yeah, I'm selling my books, but I can't give books away. So it's hard to make, this has been a hard path. Because there is, in our capitalist society, everybody's got to have something to sell, some easy, quick fix, usually. That's what supplements are, easy, quick fixes. And that's what sustains a lot of people in this health space. But what sustains me really isn't the money, because I'm not really getting any from doing this. It's the stories that I hear. And, I love getting the stories of like, I'm now on no medications. I've lost 100 pounds. I was taking 12 prescriptions. Some of them were were addicting substances for anxiety. And some of them were for often people are on high blood pressure medications and cholesterol medications and type 2 diabetes medications. And people just felt like they had no control over their health. And now they feel like they're in control. As another patient who was hospitalized for heart failure and was on oxygen, and he lost something like almost 300 pounds. It was astounding, and no longer needs oxygen, right? And so he can do all kinds of physical work that he could never do. He couldn't do for years. So, people are almost literally risen from the dead. And it's those kinds of stories that people just randomly write me in letters, or my patients when I work with them, they come back and they tell me, because, people don't go to the doctor when they're well, right? So it has to be that random follow-up. And that's why I do this. That's my payment.
Well, that's great. What's the publication date of the book?
June 11th of 2024. You can pre-order it now from Amazon. You can go to my website and find out where else you can order it, and you can look it over, see if what else isn't, what other types of information is, and learn more about the book from my website too.
Okay, that's great. Dark Calories. Okay. I encourage everyone to read the book. It's a thick book, but it's got a lot of great info, and it sounds like it's going to be an incredible change for people that act on it, eliminate seed oils from their diet.
Yes, that is the one thing I hear more than anything else. This changed my life.
Well, excellent, Kate. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Good Question Podcast. Please email support@thegoodquestionpodcast.com if you have any referrals to great guests for us to interview. Visit thegoodquestionpodcast.com to hear more interviews. And please help us spread the word by rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to this podcast.